Welcome to the Intelight tutorial 204. In this tutorial, we'll be exploring the peer-to-peer functionality in Maxtime. One of the functionalities of peer-to-peer is the ability to pick a pattern based off of an input from a different controller. So in this application here, we have a ball stadium and we have a queuing detector. And when the cars back up on the queuing detector, the input becomes true. That detector goes into this controller number one, and then it's passed to controller number two to select the pattern. Basically saying there's a bunch of cars coming your way, give us a big green band. So if we look at this graphic, and you will see controller number one down here at the ball stadium, and we're going to drive this controller down here to a different pattern. Now this second controller can be any place in the network as long as there's communication between the two controllers. So we will set this up and give it a try. To mock this up, I need two controllers. Controller number one in our example will be at the ball stadium, and it's pure 222, and then the subscribing controller, controller number two, is the one that's going to get the parameter from controller number one and his pattern. So on this first controller, controller number one, which I'm calling pure 222, it's important to have communications. The controllers have to talk to each other and make decisions on their own. So I've hooked up a Cat5 cable. I'm going to go Ethernet communications, and I've hooked up a little toggle switch to control it in. Okay, so the little switch is hooked up to logic ground, so I need to ground a pin, and that pin I happened to pick was vehicle detector input 1. Now I could have picked any input, any one that has an I beside it here as an input, and any input would work, but I picked vehicle 1 to keep it simple for our example. So in the subscribing controller, there's no mechanical hookup. It's going to be software. It's going to read the detector 1 at the peer controller and take action off of it. So the important thing is the COM. I've masked off the LED so my camera would take the pictures, but they're actually blinking. They are talking. So I have my two controllers set up here. I got controller number one, pure 222, and I have my controller number two, which is my subscribing controller. On controller number one, the main thing is communication. So I'm going to go to my IP addresses, and I need to know what that IP address is. It's 192.168.0.222. So I must know what that value is when I go to program it in the subscribing controller. So now I will move over to my second controller, controller number two, and I am going to go to 2 for controller and 9 for more. And I'm going to go to user programs, and I'm going to go into definitions number 2, and I'm going to program this through the front panel just because I can. I'm going to pick program 1, and of course the value is a status, so I'm going to move over the result, and I'm going to hit the plus sign, and I'm going to scroll down through all the possible inputs to the controller. And it could be a preempt, an omit, a phase plan, a detector. Basically, any input into the controller can be activated from this peer control. And of course, I have to scroll down quite far to find my pattern control. So when I get down a little bit further, timing plans, and I'm going to go to timing plan D. So when I go to timing plan D, I need a pattern number. I'm going to put 11 in. And then my operator is going to be resultant is equal to parameter A at peer B. And my parameter A is going to be my detector, vehicle detector number 1. So when vehicle detector number 1 is true at peer B, which is my peer 222, I will go to pattern 11. So I'm scrolling down, I'm looking for a vehicle detector, and I'm getting closer. Get down a little bit further. Got calls, there's a vehicle detector, and put a 1 in. I can scroll over, and now I have to put in my peer number, so it's going to be number. So I hit my plus sign a couple times and find number, and then I'll scroll over and put that peer number, which is 222. Okay, for just a little quick review on this, under this program we have timing pattern 11, and we go all the way across to peer 22, and we can put in delays and extensions if we need more. And we can also add a description. But what I want to do is, this is the basic program, so this is all you need. I usually go into description and label my programs so I know what they are later. I need to make it just a little bit bigger for typing purposes. And you use this like you're texting on the old style cell phone. So a P would be number 6, and an A would be number 1, and a T would be 7 twice, and I'm going to pick a 1, 1, so pattern 11, and I'm going to put a space in by just arrowing over, and then I'll find the F, which is number 2, 3 times, and after the F, R, so we'll go to number 6 3 times, and then we'll go to the O, which is 5 3 times, and then the M, which is number 5, and we'll put another space in, and we will put in peer 222. So that'll be a good, need a space in there. Gotta put, there you go. P E E R and then 222. Just to have a title in it. I could have been something a little simpler, but it's nice to know how to do this from the front of the controller and the key strokes. If you're in a computer, you just got the full keyboard and you can have more robust type labeling and tags. It actually works without the label being in, but it's good programming practice to have it in. So it's pattern 1 from peer 222. The last step is to program the peer. We're calling for a peer, but we haven't defined the peer here. So to describe for that parameter, we go to controller, number 2, 4 for peer, and we put in the peer ID, which is 222, and we simply put that IP address in. So the IP address was 192, as we can see over in the other screen, .168.0.222. So the main thing in the peer controller is the IP address and them talking back and forth. If they can't talk, this doesn't work. So Ethernet radios, fiber, it doesn't really matter. They just have to be able to talk to each other. And they get this message within 1/10 of a second. So we got to have good communications here. So I'm typing it in, 168, and we've got a 0 and a 222. And that will complete the programming of everything you need in the subscribing controller. Technically, I haven't programmed anything in the peer controller. The subscribing controller subscribes to a parameter in the peer controller. So in the subscribing controller where all the programming is done. But it's simply one line of information in the user program, and then putting the IP address in with peer ID, and you're done. So we'll set these controllers back to the main screen. So we'll go to the other one, and now we can go back and start testing here. Okay, that's next. Okay, so we're going to start testing this controller, and the first thing we're going to do on the peer controller is to go into statuses, and we're going to go into our vehicle detector status. So we're going to detectors, and here's our vehicle detector status. So I'm going to move the cursor off so you can see it. And when I click my switch, vehicle detector 1 should come on. So click, it's on, click, it's off. So I have to make sure my input is going into the controller and it's seen. Now over on the subscribing controller, I simply go to statuses and go the summary status. And what I'm going to be looking for is the control up here. So right now it's saying other free. And I will go back to the peer controller and hit my switch, the detector's on, and notice we've gone to pattern 11. So whenever that detector's true, the subscribing controller is in pattern 11. So I click the switch on, and I look over, and it's pattern 11. So if I, just to get a little pencil here and draw it out for you, this is the detector input, and this is the pattern. So it could be any pattern. It could be any input. It could be a preamp to a preamp, a whole. Well, that was kind of fun, and it opens up a whole new aspect of what we can do with traffic controllers out there. So certainly you can set this up. It's a quick and easy demo, but there's lots of power. So hopefully you enjoyed it. I'll be doing some other peer-to-peers in the future. If you got some apps out there you want us to try, let us know. If not, we'll see you at the next video. Thanks.